Well, good morning, everybody. We're just letting everybody in that signed up for the event this morning. So welcome. This is our first event of the Global Trade Conference Week. And I'm really delighted to be able to welcome Andy Hipgrave, who's going to be sharing with you all about import, the one-stop shop, and how important it's going to be for everybody moving forward in the next couple of weeks if you are engaging with e-commerce. So I just want to tell you about today's webinar because it is supported by the West Midlands Combined Authority. The Greater Birmingham Chambers of Commerce has teamed up with Coventry and Warwickshire Chamber and the Black Country Chamber to offer a range of post-Brexit transition-related support for businesses across the West Midlands area. And we've got a range of other activity that's coming up over the first few months now. And this is to help support businesses that are continuing to trade with the EU. And this includes digital workshops, looking at country-specific events. We're focusing on major markets in the EU and what firms need to know when trading with them post-Brexit. And our next workshop is actually coming up on July the 14th, and that's called Trading with EU Partners, and it's focusing on Ireland. So that if you are interested in all of this, then that's another one definitely to go and sign up for, because of course it's all free of charge, supported by the West Midlands Combined Authority. And the Chamber is also offering a customs support helpline for businesses, and you can speak to our international trade advisors and our export documentation team as well about any questions that you may have around moving goods between the UK and the EU under the new rules, and of course on any other trading aspects. So we've got our international trade advisors, and one of them is on this call too, and that's the programme which is delivered through the Department of International Trade. So with that, I'm going to hand over now to Andy Hipgrave, because Andy's got a whole lot of slides there to share with you, and we've got some more events this week which I do want you to be aware of before you take up the mantle, Andy. So we've got the another event this afternoon going on, which is sponsored by Dyke Yaxley, our legal sponsors there. We've also got another event coming up on trading with America, so some of you may have an interest in that. And the main Global Conference Week which is on Wednesday. And that is a whole host of sessions from 12 o'clock till 5:30 that you may just want to dip in and out of, but that is our flagship event of the week. And then on Thursday, we've also got a really important event, which is all about the trade support that we have on offer through the Chamber of Commerce. That will be where you will find out all about the support from international trade advisors, from our Growth Hub, from Innovate UK and our Export Academy. And along with that, on Friday, we've got a session on foreign exchange with Western Union. So, Andy, I'm going to hand over to you. So please share all of your insight, expertise and knowledge on this subject, which we know is so important at the moment. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mandy. Thanks. Right. Good morning, everybody. If you don't know me, my name's Andy Hipgrave, and I'm going to be talking about IOSS, or Import One-Stop Shop, this morning. Who needs to do it, what it is, and where it is, what it affects, basically. So it is going to be a major change from the 1st of July. Next slide, please, Grace. Okay, the government are about to, come the 1st of July, change the way that things are sent to the EU. And obviously this has been a major issue for some time now, with potentially countries like China, etc., sending things into the EU without having to pay VAT. So what they decided to do is to make a more level playing field. And the way that they've decided to do this is to get people to register for this new system of paying VAT, so that everybody pays VAT that sends goods into the EU. And obviously, as usual, there are complications because the EU has 27 different VAT levels. So it varies from 17% to 27%. So what it plans to do, what they want it to do, is to collect the tax that they're due. I think it was 1.4 billion last year that they missed out on, they think. So they've passed the buck, as it were, and said, you've got to do this for yourselves now. We just want you to send us the money, basically. So you have to declare and account for VAT that you pay directly to the tax authorities via a tax return. Believe it or not, the tax returns for this are going to be every month. So you'll need a jolly good accountant to do that for you. And under the IOSS scheme, which you have to register for, it's for goods up to the value of 150 euros. So that's about £135. Now that's the value of the goods. It doesn't include carriage and things like that. So that's the intrinsic value of the goods. Now, it will actually simplify the collection of the VAT, there's no doubt about that. And obviously, the declaration of it will make everything legal. And it's the payment of the VAT for these distance sales that they really want to get and avoid different costs. Because when this happened in December, a lot of the carriers, because it was unclear what to do, were charging all kinds of different fees for this, admin fees, etc. That will stop now under the IOSS system, because the carriers will know what to do, because the tax will be collected in country under the IOSS scheme. Okay, so what are the main benefits of IOSS? Well, it's ease and simplicity, absolutely. You'll get a single IOSS VAT ID number, and that will cover the VAT registration for all of the 27 member states. So you don't have to register in each different country that you send goods to. You'll register in one under the IOSS scheme. Now, to register, and this wasn't clear to me until last week or the week before, you have to use an intermediary. Intermediary, in our basic terms, will be an accountant, and an accountant that's based within the EU. So some of the larger groups, some of the larger companies are willing to do this, some of them aren't, but I've got more information on that if you actually need it specifically. So the hope is that this will create a positive experience for customers. In other words, they'll order online and the VAT will be included at the point of sale. So it's transparent. There are no extra charges when it gets to the door, as there have been under various different Incoterms in the past, where it might have happened to you that things have come from the States or China or whatever, and they're saying, oh, there's £10.50 to pay on the door for VAT or import tax. That won't happen anymore under the IOSS scheme. It will be a smooth transition from one country to the other. So hopefully the idea of this will mean that it's improved cash flow. VAT payments will be made monthly to the EU tax authorities, and hopefully everybody will be happy. And obviously, as you're aware of in e-commerce, it's the smoothness of it that makes customers come back. So if they have a good experience, it's good. If they have to wait days or pay extra funds when it gets to the door for the final mile, then it's not such a good experience, and they're not likely to return, or less likely to return. Okay, and next slide, please, Grace. Right, duty deferment. Now, I don't want to go into this too much, but I just thought it was necessary to outline what it is. So the duty deferment in this case, if you sign up for the scheme, what it means in real terms is that when you'll send your goods out, if you weren't using the IOSS scheme, as we've just discussed, that tax will be payable at the door or on entry into the country. Now, sometimes that would slow things down because it'd have to wait at customs until that duty was paid. Now, this won't happen under this scheme. So what we are actually doing is deferring the duty and allowing the parcel to go through to the customer up to 46 days. But what that really means in real terms is that you'll do your accounts or your accountant will do your accounts at the end of each month, and you will pay your tax then. So that's what that means by duty deferment. And this will help all of your parcels be delivered much faster than they have been in the past, potentially, because the carriers will know this, and each of your parcels will have your IOSS number on. So that VAT strike IOSS number that we discussed earlier, that will be on the parcel, on the API, on the label, excuse me, that you send. So when it's seen that at customs, they'll register it, scan it, and it will go straight through. So that it's speed, and obviously it's a good way to pay. Next slide, please. Right, as I said earlier, the main reason they wanted to do this was to create a level playing field for all e-commerce parcels being sent from outside the EU. So not just China, and obviously, as we're a third country now, from us as well, from the States, so everybody has to pay the same VAT level. So it is a leveler from that point of view. I mean, up to the end of last year, as I said, there'd been a low value threshold of £20, but that's completely been abolished now. The new threshold is €150, and I would, incidentally, just a quick word of warning here for the €150. If you are sending things in the same consignment, i.e. the same box, and that you're sending multiple items, if it's clothing, and there are 4 items in there, and it puts the value up to €160, those items will not be allowed to go under the IOSS scheme. So it might be advisable that you split it into two packages so that it can go through under this scheme, which means that the intrinsic value of the goods inside those items, inside those parcels, will be less than €150. It's really important. And they will know what the values are, because on the new API system that's coming out, is that, as before, it will have a description of the items inside. It will have the value on there as well. It will have your IOSS number there, and it'll have the HS code as well. All of that information will be on the outside of the package. So when it goes to the system, they'll be able to see how much it's worth. And if it's worth more than €150, it won't be allowed to go through. It will be a separate entity. If it's over €150, by the way, then the importer of record is the buyer, and they will have to pay the tax themselves in country. So it is crucial that you understand how this works. So this means that each EU country will collect tax on the items sold to its people, so its indigenous population. So if you're sending things to Germany, then obviously the tax can be paid. And next slide, please. Okay, so just as I've just previously said, I'm getting ahead of myself here, but when items are sold under the threshold of 150, the tax will be charged and paid, due to be paid in the country. So this means that if a company from outside the EU, it must calculate and pay the tax on the goods delivered at the local VAT rate. A word of warning here, some of the payment systems or payment processes that you're using don't actually work this out for you. We are in a position to help you because there are some software companies that are doing this already. There are some payment processing companies that are doing this as well. And it will absolutely be really relevant come the 1st of July that you know how to do this, because really data is king. So if the data isn't on the parcel, you're going to have issues. So you really need to get this, get the right company involved in producing, one, your labels, and two, your software as far as the rates that you're going to pay in each country. So I know for a fact, for example, Germany have just changed their tax rate, bless them. So you need to really be aware and have a live system that can alter for each tax rate for each country. Obviously, some of you will only sell to half a dozen countries, but if you do sell to the whole of the EU under a platform, then potentially you'll have to pay this. Incidentally, platforms, if you sell on a platform, the IOSS will not be applicable to you.
No, it's not, is it?
No. Because the IOSS system is only if you sell it on your own website. If you're selling on a platform, those platforms are now responsible for paying the tax. So you're just a supplier. So that is really crucial. It's only if you sell these goods yourself. Right, okay, next point. If your company holds stock within the EU country, you must register for VAT or have an EORI number within that country. So if you have a fulfillment place in France, for example, you would have to register for VAT in France, as well as having the IOSS for the goods sold from here. And it might be that you have an OSS registration in country as well. So if you're outside of the EU, you'll have an IOSS. If you're inside of the EU, you'll have an OSS, one-stop shop, but obviously internally within the EU. And you'll also be viable for local VAT within the country that you hold the goods. So that's really crucial. For example, if you hold goods in Germany, Holland and France, you'll need to register for VAT in all three of those countries if you have fulfillment in all three of those countries. If you have fulfillment in one, then obviously it's one registration. And if you're just sending goods from the UK, which is the majority of our customers, our clients within the Midlands, then you will need to do the IOSS scheme. To register for the IOSS scheme, you need your accountant to do it, and not your UK accountant that you're using now. It needs to be an intermediary that's in country or within the EU to do that. We can help with this, and there are some companies that are doing this already, but you definitely need to register for your IOSS scheme to go forward. Next slide, please. These are the key questions that I put down that I've been asked many times over the last few weeks. So I'm hoping that this will potentially answer some of your questions. So how long does it take to register for IOSS? It takes about a month. Now, this is dependent on which one you use, because it's the way that you register is through an online portal within each country. So Portugal will have its own portal, Germany will have its own portal, France, Ireland, all of them have their own portals. Obviously, to register, you need your accountant to apply for registration for yourself. How often do you do your VAT returns? You do your VAT returns once a month under the IOSS scheme. So there is possibility to do it quarterly, but it's not looking likely at the moment. And obviously for the larger players out there, that will be a lot of money that's outstanding. Now, the reason that some of the larger accounting companies, global ones, for example, aren't being involved in this is because they don't want to, because under the new scheme, the intermediary or the accountant that you use to pay the VAT is jointly responsible for paying your VAT. So a lot of them don't want that risk, because for the larger companies out there, that could be a huge amount of risk management that they'll have to encounter. It could be £1 million a month potentially, couldn't it? Depending on how much you sell, what your turnover is. So some of the larger companies don't want to do this. So from my opinion, in my opinion, the hardest thing in this situation will be finding an intermediary to work on your behalf that you're happy with and knows the system, basically. So it is going to be a big change for some companies. Is the VAT the same in all countries? Absolutely not, just to confuse things more. So yes, you go from 17% in Germany to 27% in Hungary. So some of you will be aware of that, I'm sure, but that piece of information is highly relevant, because that needs to go on the label that you produce, because obviously you have to put the correct amount of VAT on there underneath your IOSS scheme. What information do I need on my parcel? This is absolutely crucial for the smooth running of your business and the parcels moving through. You need the HS number, the SIC code. You need a good description. You need the value, and you need the VAT on there. You need your IOSS number, and you need your EURI number. So all of those things need to be on the parcel. There are software companies that are producing this now. So again, we can guide you, we can help you. It might be that your system currently can do that. I don't know, your individual software, but all of that information needs to be on, otherwise there will be issues. And you risk the chance of getting your parcel stuck in customs. Customs are well aware of this, and hopefully under the IOSS scheme, I think if you're registered, then your parcels will move smoothly. Anybody that doesn't use a system or doesn't know about the new changes, they're going to have real problems, I think, because they have to pay the duties going into country. How do you work out how much VAT to charge? Again, there is software to do this. You could do it individually on a weekly basis or whatever if you want, if you do your own. But again, there are companies out there that are doing this. It's very important that you understand when you're working out how much VAT to charge, is that it isn't just that information on there. There are lots of other things included in some of the software packages that put in denied addresses, for example. There are denied addresses, which means that you can't send goods to those particular addresses or individuals, obviously with the risk of terrorism and all that kind of thing, but it is a legal requirement to do that. What about returns? Really good question, if I say so myself. Obviously, when you get returns, you will potentially have already paid tax on that. So it's very good. If you've got a high return rate, it's very important that you use the IOSS scheme well, in that, because of the way that the software will work, is that you'll have a record of what's been returned, which means you'll tell your accountant before the end of month, and they will claim that back, or they won't pay that in the first place, probably. So that's really important. What is a third country? Some people don't realise we are a third country now, UK. So anybody that is outside of the EU, so China would be, America would be, and we are. What is country of origin? This is important in some cases, not in all, but obviously country of origin is where the goods were manufactured originally. So if you're buying in containers from China and then selling them from here, obviously you'll pay the duty on the import here, but you'll also be paying when it goes out. So country of origin is very important. And what if I sell on Amazon or other platforms? If you sell on Amazon or other platforms, you're off the hook, really, because you haven't got to do this. It's Amazon that will have to sort this out, and they will have to pay the VAT on the goods. So you're being, I think that the term is third-party supplier to Amazon under this system. But basically, if you're selling on a platform, you won't have to pay this. Unfortunately, I'm sure the platforms are not going to do this for nothing. So I would imagine that there will be an increase in charges from them if they're going to do this for you. There'll be increase in admin, obviously, from their point of view, and they're going to be liable for paying the tax, which means for somebody like Amazon, that's a huge burden now, potentially, because we're talking very big numbers, obviously. And that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions now directly, and if you'd like to ask me some, that's fine. If you want to get in touch after the fact, you're more than welcome to.
Thanks, Andy. That was brilliant and really concise information there. And I think we'll be able to share these slides afterwards with the people that have come on today, won't we? Where do you think that the biggest issue is going to lie for people? Where's the biggest change for them now, for those people on the screen today?
I think, obviously, if they're in e-commerce, it's a fundamental change, because if you're sending goods to the EU and it's in e-commerce, you have no choice really, but to register for IOSS. I do think, obviously, the fact that you can't register yourselves is a really bad thing, I think, in that obviously you've got to be reliant on your accountant to do that. The fact that you need to use an intermediary accountant, in other words, somebody that's willing to pay the tax for you and be liable for that tax legally, that means that a lot of you will have to use a different accountant for this particular purpose. Obviously, you can keep the accountant that you're used to if you're selling in the UK, but anything that's going into the EU, you need an intermediary. And they keep using this as a buzzword, intermediary. Really, it's an accountant that's willing to be liable to pay your tax. Obviously, the tax will be collected as you send it through by the payment processor. That doesn't happen at the moment, but most of the processors will be able to do that. But there are a few that are taking the lead with this. So I would say really be aware, be proactive. If you need to talk to me, I'm more than happy to help. But ultimately, make sure you do something before the 1st of July, because it'll take time to set this up.
What would you say is the first thing people should be doing then?
They should be looking at where they send their goods into the EU, looking at the numbers that are involved, and then either speaking to myself or finding an intermediary that can apply for their IOSS registration, just like a VAT registration, basically, but an international one. That's what they need to do first. And then the other things that we need to look at are, is your data correct that's going onto there? Which system do you use to produce your labels? Is it capable of having an extra box on there for your IOSS number? Will it have the right HS code? So all of these things need to be considered. I'm sure that the majority of you that are doing it already know about most of this, but I just want you to be clear that you are aware of everything that needs to be on these parcels that are going through, and that you are registered. Once it gets up and running, it'll be relatively simple to do. And I think it will, in time, be a fairer system for everybody. but it's just a case of people not knowing and it all being new. That scares me, because if people stick their head in the sand and don't do anything, there'll be real issues here.
Andy, you were talking about the software that people would need to have in place to be able to do this. So those people that are on the screen today, that it's completely new to them, how do you know how simple it is to get hold of the software, costs involved, how complex it is to then start to use it? Because if we've only got, well, just over a week left, really, haven't we, for these changes to take place? What's your thoughts on that?
I think there are software companies. If you're a larger user, then that's relatively easy to do. If you're a smaller user, it might be a little more tricky to do, but most of the labels that you do are using APIs from the carrier that you're using. So, you know, DHL would have their own API, DPD would have their own API, Hermes would. So on the API is a piece of software that produces the label. Most of the carriers are close to being ready to do this now, I would say. So potentially you could contact your carrier. I don't know the way that your individual labels or systems that you use at the moment work, but obviously most of that information, if you've been sending it abroad, you would have had to do a CN22 anyway. So in the past, potentially, not when we were in the EU, obviously, but you would have done if you're sending it worldwide. So you would know these pieces of information that need to be on there, but clearly, that needs to work well. You need to check that you've got the capability to put all of that on the label. If you don't, again, we can help you. There are companies there that are doing it. It's very important that you get the right payment process, because not all of the processing companies that are out there, they just take the money and pay you, don't they, as a merchant? But ultimately now, some of that money's got to go to the accountant to pay the VAT. It won't be allowed to come to you because the accountant won't take that risk. So it has to go direct to them. So again, it's something that we need to discuss in detail, individually, potentially. Like I say, that's what we're here for. We can help you.
It definitely feels again like being prepared for Brexit at the end of the year.
Yeah, I would say this is more so. Really, it is a game changer. And well, to put it into context for you, the UK government asked the EU to put this off for another 6 months, and they said no, basically. It frustrates me because it makes the UK, you know, look negligent on this. But then up to last Friday, I went online trying to find the portals for all the countries. Some of them aren't up yet. So how are you supposed to register for a system that starts in 2 weeks that's not there yet? So it's not all of our fault, as it were, but a lot of them are there. But then that's when I found out that you can't register yourself, that you need your intermediary to do that for you. So again, it's really important that you're on the ball with this and that you know what you're doing and you are registered before the 1st of July. I have a nasty feeling that a lot of people won't be.
Well, the good news is that at least with people taking part in this today, they can come to us for that support and we can make those connections. Absolutely. So that people can be as prepared as possible. Just thinking about, you know, being prepared for Brexit and, you know, customs declarations and the changes that occurred there and the additional costs that were incurred for people to process the declarations themselves. Is this likely to really impact on people from a cost perspective, all of the different changes?
Yeah, there will be changes. There will be costs involved because obviously you'll have another accountant or your intermediary that you'll need to actually do your VAT return for the EU. I mean, the positive side of that is that you only need one, you only need one for all of the countries rather than one in each country. So that's a positive. But yeah, so there's a cost involved in that. Obviously, with the payment processing, there's always been a cost there. And I don't think that will change dramatically, depending on who you use. But I don't think that will be such an issue. It's just the VAT. And obviously, you can be transparent now about what's on your websites and how you're selling these things, because you can include VAT at the local level. So at least there's a transparency of costs there. So once a customer's making the decision to buy, there are no more costs for them. So from that point of view, it's a good thing, because potentially in the past, it could have got to their doorstep and they would have had to pay extra tax for the carrier to be able to release it. So that's a positive. But yeah, there are costs there, but hopefully we can keep them down to a minimum. I think with all of you guys with e-commerce, it's all about scale, really. And if you are doing reasonable numbers, then obviously you can handle the extra costs or build it into your model. So it's really important that you're aware of just what's involved.
And I suppose one of the last ones from me would be, are we anticipating that this is going to hold up shipments of goods?
If they are not registered under IOSS, absolutely, definitely. Yeah, in fact, I'm taking the whole of July off because I don't want my phone's going to be going crazy. But no, it absolutely, it is true, and it does mean that people will have their goods stopped if they're not under this system. I mean, I think that a lot of people have been slow on the uptake here, and I don't think it's been publicised enough as to what you need to do and how quickly it needs to happen. But from the 2nd of July, well, the 1st of July, but when the goods start arriving in Europe, if they are incorrect, they won't be getting through. To put it into some perspective for you guys, under this system, and it's come from America, as you would expect, but under the HS codes and the 80% rule for them, what they're saying is if 80% of their goods aren't correctly labelled, not only will they not return them, they're going to destroy them, they're going to burn them. And this caused a bit of a furore about 2 weeks ago when they brought out this rule. But really, that's how serious it is, that things need to be labelled correctly, and you know, data is king now. So hopefully this will work, and it will be the level that they want it to be. I think if you embrace it, that's the best way to look at it. Obviously, there are costs there, but we're not talking huge costs here. You know, we're talking small percentages, basically. So you would have been paying for payment processing anyway. So there's not going to be a major change there. It's just connecting all the pieces together. So you need to register, first of all. So you need your intermediary, you need your payment processing for sure. And then obviously you need your carrier to take the goods there. But ultimately it should work. It should, he says.
Okay. I mean, we've got the beauty of having a small select group on the call today. So if anybody's on here now that wants to ask a specific question about your business, if there's anything that has been highlighted in what Andy said, then, you know, please do unmute yourself and have a chat and use this opportunity to ask, or put it in the chat box if you're unable to do that. But I think, you know, I know that Andy has put a lot of work into researching this over the last couple of months, and it is a big deal. And like you said, Andy, it hasn't been publicised enough because maybe people have had their focus in other areas at the minute, obviously with the COVID recovery and customs declarations and all that's involved. But now this is the next new thing that we do absolutely need to be aware of. And we're going to ramp up our communications on this through the chamber, aren't we? And I know that DIT are also going to be doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a case of, you know, there are going to be some horrible headlines on the front of the papers for the first week of July, because everybody's going to be going crazy about this stuff. But it has been out there for a while, and we just need to react now. If you start the ball rolling, you know, today, tomorrow, this week, at least you'll be able to comply, and it's all about compliance. So yeah, definitely, we're here to help you guys. So if you need any help or you want to ask any questions, feel free. Is that?
Yeah, that's our first question from Emma.
Yeah, will there be a list of it? Well, no, there isn't. So that's one of the things that I've been working on, because a lot of the intermediaries, or a lot of the accountants, the Big Four, etc., the KPMGs of this world, they don't want to do this because they won't be liable. They're not prepared to be liable for their clients' VAT. So we had to find a way of them not being liable, and I've managed to do that with a couple of payment processing companies. And what the plan has been is that they will, instead of they will take the payments, but they will send the payments directly to the intermediary, which means that it will include the VAT, which means that they're not liable because they've got the money in the bank, basically. So there's no risk for them under that system. Not all intermediaries are willing to do that. And what you have to bear in mind is that the intermediaries need to be in country. So they need to be within the EU. So you can't use a UK one to do this. So I have been doing some research. I have found a couple that were willing to do it. So I just need to make sure that that's still the case, and then I'll be glad to pass that information on and you'll be able to use them. So yeah, but what I would say is that whether you intend to use the intermediary in the long term is irrelevant. Just take on an intermediary now to make sure that you can apply for your IOSS number, because that's the crucial thing. You know, you definitely need to have an IOSS number by the 1st of July.
So Andy, is it wise for people to go to their accountant and start talking about it with the terminology of IOSS and hope that they understand what they're talking about, or is there something else they need to say?
No. IOSS, well, I doubt very much if your accountants will know what IOSS is, and if they do, they won't be able to do it to help you because they're not in country, they're not inside the EU. They might have a branch that's in country, which potentially could help you, but unless they're willing to be an intermediary, and this is the difference. It's like, I was thinking, well, what's the difference between an intermediary and accountant here? The accountants obviously are accountants. Intermediaries take on the responsibility, so they're the go-between between you and the government of that particular country to pay the VAT. So some of the accountants aren't willing to do that. And it's not because they're being bullish or pig-headed about not willing to do it for their customers. In some situations, the legal situation in country, for example, Germany, doesn't allow them to. So it's not a case of them just choosing not to. In some cases, they can't be. So there are real ramifications here. For example, some of them won't do it because it might be that they are employed as an accountant to audit your accounts and audit your sales. Well, if they've been involved in the sales, then there's a conflict of interest there. So they wouldn't be allowed to do that. So you just need to be aware of which companies are doing that. So it is tricky. I think I found a way around it for it to run smoothly, but obviously at this stage, it's a case of seeing where we go. But I did speak to an accounting intermediary late last week, and they were happy with the way that we were going to do things with the payment processing. So I think most of them are just scared of the risk element in that they don't want to be liable for your tax, which is understandable.
Thanks, Andy. Sharon's asked a question now. If they use a UK fulfilment house for mainly UK deliveries, but have the odd EU delivery, is the onus on them or is it the fulfilment house?
It would, well, no, fulfillment is not a platform, so it's on them. The onus is on them. Fulfillment is just the way that it's, and no, it's not a platform. So yeah, the onus would be on you. Now, if it's only the odd one, and we are talking odd one here, then potentially you could have the importer, i.e. the buyer, has the importer of the goods themselves, and they would have to pay the VAT. So it would be slowed down. It wouldn't be a normal delivery, and there won't be any. You know, that's the way it's going to be from now on. So obviously under the IOSS scheme, they will go through easily and fast. If you're sending it as the odd one, then that might be tricky for you without registration for IOSS. So you would need to do that. But obviously, if you're not doing reasonable numbers there, then it's kind of, well, is it worth having another accountant? Is it worth setting up something else if you're only doing, I don't know, 5 items a week to the EU? Then that will be difficult. Yeah.
Okay. I think we've drawn to a close on the questions coming in, but please, if anybody does have one, then just pop that in or unmute yourself, that's fine. But whilst we are just waiting on that, Andy, have you got any final thoughts then on what people should do following this webinar today? Absolutely. Obviously, they're welcome to contact me or the ITA, the International Trade Advisor, for some help with this. Ultimately, the first thing to do, find an intermediary. I can help you with that.
and then once we found the intermediary, then we're going to look at the payment process, because that's what the intermediary will be interested in, to make sure that they're not liable and that they're getting the tax from your sales directly. And then obviously then you need to look at your carrier and your API to make sure that you have the right information on your label. And again, we can help with that. We've got people that we're working with currently that do have software available. I really don't know the cost of that. I would hope that it's not going to be large. I would imagine that most of them do it transactionally. But if I can help you by giving you the information that's needed to be on the label, potentially you could go to your carrier or software company and they could do that for you. But we need to look at that in detail.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thanks very much. Well, we haven't had any further questions come in here live, but if any of you do want to send any afterwards, then please do. As Andy said, reach out to us, because we are here to help you, and we can try to connect you with the relevant organisations and trade support as well. So Andy, I think on that, we'll share the slides after. And for all of you, as I said at the start, we've got a whole series of events to help you and your business go forward with international trade. So please do have a look on the website and look at all of the support that we've got on offer at the Chamber. We're here to help you. Please do reach out and use us. And on that, Andy, thank you very much.
Welcome. Thanks very much, guys.
Bye, everyone.